Well, hello. This is Mary Rose Wildfire McGuire, and I am here with another episode of The Written Advantage Success Stories from Financial Advisor Authors. And I am very pleased to have somebody really special today. Her name is Jackie Cummings Koski, and she is just amazing. She has a lot of uh, various experiences, and I'm going to read a little bit of who she is from her Financial Planning Association's bio page. And that is that she is the CEO at Money Letters LLC, founder and CEO. And she is a personal financial educator and consultant. She is a CFP, certified financial planner, an accredited financial counselor, certified educator in personal finance, National Social Security Advisor certificate, and a certified health savings advisor. And she has so many credentials and accomplishments under her belt. She has written 2 books. I'm going to be talking to her about her recent book today, but I am very happy that she is here with us. So welcome, Jackie.
Hi, Mary Rose. How are you? I'm glad to be joining you today. And I have to say one thing. So, thank you for reading off all the credentials. The Social Security one, even though it was an awesome program, I was certified. I didn't renew that, but I
Oh,
still
okay.
have the knowledge. So, technically, I don't hold that credential anymore, but all the rest are very current. And I am a lifelong learner.
Yes. Oh, that is excellent. I am the same way. I just love reading, love learning. So, we're going to dive into talking about your latest book. So, why don't you just, because you have a bunch of them behind you, so tell us about your book.
Yeah, the name of the book is called Fire for Dummies, and FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. Now, it's a new name and a new acronym, but it's an old concept. And the basic concept is live on less than you earn and invest the difference, except you speed up the process just a little bit because so much has changed in terms of retirement, what that means today, what resources are available through our employers has changed. And so I technically retired early from my corporate job, reached financial independence, and it was extremely liberating. And I was a poor kid, growing up in South Carolina that was in poverty. And to make the transition from that to financial literacy, financial education, financial independence, and retiring early, to me, it was quite a feat. But I just don't feel like I was all that special doing it. And it's totally repeatable. So I wanted to share with people that might have started with modest means like me about how I got there. And then I wanted to write the book because once I got my CFP, it filled so many gaps that I felt like this would give a very full picture, well thought out, created by, a CFP professional, but also someone that has the experience to guide other people through this process, starting with the very basic things like what is FIRE and what does it stand for, all the way up to some of the more advanced strategies that, you might need to dive into if you go down, the FIRE path. And it's everyone at some point is on the wealth building process, and FIRE just again makes it sound a lot more exciting than just wealth building. So that's what the book is about.
I love that, and I love this your story, which is that you were raised by a single father. You had a bunch of siblings, and
Yep.
life was not easy. And I think that with your experience, like when you share that with people, they know, you didn't come from a wealthy family that had a lot of education regarding finances, because there are many families. I've worked with different financial advisors, and some of them did have that. And it was a privilege
Right.
that they had that, where they had parents that taught them about that, the finances, how to handle your finances and everything. But a lot of people don't. I mean, no matter what kind of socioeconomic strata you come from, there's many
Right.
people who still are ignorant of it. But you took that, and you just showed a lot of resiliency and determination that I think is really powerful. And I'm sure that when you meet with people that they can respond to that.
Yeah, and most of what I do is one to many. So I do a lot of group things, workshops, different maybe shows, podcasts, and things like that. And the reason why I do that, it wasn't in my original plans to even get my CFP or to be a traditional one-on-one financial planner. However, I did believe that everyone should have access to the mind of a CFP. And I know most CFPs aren't going down that route. They have the one-on-one meetings, they have a book of 200 clients, but I'm like, why shouldn't everyone, have access to that? And the only way I could do that is to do this one to many model where I'm sharing all that I have learned, all of my experience, both firsthand and, working with individuals as well, to be able to put that out in the atmosphere so that the average person could get, access to this stuff and
Right.
get it from a credentialed professional, because we know there's plenty of places to get information, but the question is, how good is the information? What is the quality of
Right.
the information and what is the source?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So okay, you kind of explained a little bit of what it is you do regarding who you speak to. So how would you describe the audience for your book? Do you have a specific kind of person in mind, or is it just a general people who just want to learn more about finances?
Yeah, I would say there's probably 3 different types of audiences for the book. It's for the very beginner on their financial journey that wants to build wealth, and FIRE just gets their attention, but they may not even know what FIRE means. It
Mhm.
starts out on that basic level. And the second group of people would be someone that is on their journey that is like, okay, I think I'm figuring this out, but it'd be cool to have something that's going to walk me through it and answer all these questions that I have in my head that I'm getting 20 different answers for. And then the third one, honestly, being a CFP professional, I wanted financial professionals to learn more about what FIRE is and better understand it from someone else that is a financial professional. So there's so many topics when it comes to reaching financial independence and retiring early. So many topics that are CFP topics. So this book covers almost all of those, and either their clients or someone they know or they themselves would find it to be very interesting and a read that they can relate to as a professional. And as we're in this world of finance, we should know all the new trends that are happening,
Right.
everything that's going on and what people may be asking them about, what their clients may be asking them about. So those would be like 3 of the main groups of people that I believe would be attracted to the book that I kind of had in mind as I was writing it.
Very good. So I know that this is not your first book. That's one of my next question. My next question was, but tell us about what was your first book?
Yeah, so the first book, it was a labor of love. It was called Money Letters to My Daughter. And started writing it when she was 14 and she was in high school. And I wanted to finish the book and give it to her as a high school graduation gift when she was 17. So it took me nearly 2.5 years to write the book because I put it down a few times and I wasn't, hardcore with it, but it was so meaningful to me. And it was a very special personal journey because as all the stuff I had learned about personal finance at that point, as parents, what was the first thing we want to do when we learn something? We want to teach it to our kids. So that was mainly what I was wanting to do for her. And she was a teenager, so she wasn't listening to what I had to say. So I'm like, okay, I'll memorialize it and I'll put it all in a book. Because she was a smart girl and everything, but yeah, she wasn't really listening to what I had to say. And when I would my part of my undergrad program was journalism. I enjoyed writing, and that was one of my outlets. So when I figured out that there were plenty of ways to get a book self-published now, I was all about it. And I'm like, I'm not writing this to sell a million copies. I'm not writing it for, the masses per se. I am writing it for one person, and that's my daughter. So if I only sold one book and it was her or her child, my grandchild, that is what the purpose of the book was. So it was truly a labor of love, and it will forever be my greatest work. And it did help me refine some skills, some writing skills, learning about the book publishing industry, learning a lot of different things. So I was glad that I wrote that book. And, once it did come out, I did start getting, high schools mostly that wanted me to come in and speak. And it turned into a lot more than I had anticipated. So it worked out great as a self-published book, but that was like 10 years ago. And, over time, there were moments where I sold a lot of books, and then moments where, it was like nothing. But like I said, it was a labor of love. So that would forever be my greatest writing.
You said something that's really important that copywriters know this because that is actually my background is copywriting, and I approach writing books in a copywriting way. But in copywriting, whenever you write sales copy, the basically the recommendation is to write it as though you're writing it to one person. And many times when people write something that they're trying to reach a lot of people
Right.
with, they'll write as though they're talking to a crowd, but it's just one
Right.
person reading it at that moment. So that's why it's so important to use the word, for instance, you. You
Right.
do you ever feel, or instead of like approaching people with and I know we have a lot of going on with the pronouns right now and all, but but basically what you want to do is you want to make the reader feel like you're talking directly to them. So when you wrote that book, it was a great approach that you took, because you're writing it to your daughter, but then everyone else who read it probably felt, like there was some things that hit them too.
That's
Like,
true.
wow, I can relate to this. It's like she's talking to me.
Right.
So
That's a great point. I did have a lot of concern of how am I going to write this book in a way that my daughter will actually read it. So I'm
yeah.
trying all the tricks, but I start every letter with it's a series of letters, and I start every letter with "Dear Amber." And then I sign it off with, mom, when I was talking about credit card companies and all the fees, I would say mom that hates crumb snatchers or something. I would make them really funny and stuff. So I went out of my way to make it to where it was entertaining enough for her to actually finish a letter. She didn't have to read them all at once, but I did work hard on that. And to your point, I guess I didn't realize about the one person thing, but that makes so much sense.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, when it comes to business copy, for instance, a lot of times businesses will enter into the conversation by saying we are doing this and we are doing that. And
Right.
so, the focus is on them. And then many times they don't even use the word you. They don't use that pronoun. And so people, a lot of times when they land on that copy, they kind of feel separate. They don't feel like there's
Right.
no connection. So by you doing what you did, you added that human connection, and so you're
Good to
having
know.
a
I did
conversation.
something right.
Yes, you did, most definitely. So, okay, you explained. My next question was what was going on in your life that inspired you to write your book. Now, we know the first one, what was going on, why you did that. What about the second one? Like what compelled you to write the second book?
Well, this is very interesting. So, one of the main difference between that book, Money Letters, and this book is that I worked with a traditional publisher, which is a whole different ballgame. Wiley is the publisher, and most people recognize the For Dummies brand. So, it was really interesting. I wasn't looking to write a book at that moment, but I had a financial planning friend of mine that's also CFP running her firm. Her name is Sarah, and Sarah Catherine, and she's growing her firm, and it's growing like crazy. And she was working with them with a proposal and she was trying to decide, do I have time to write this book?
Oh,
And at that time, it was going to be titled Wealth Building for Dummies. Remember I said wealth building is much like fire. So she had to turn it down. And when she turned it down, she talked to the acquisitions editor at Wiley, and she said, I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. I'm growing a firm and I just don't. And so they asked her, do you know of someone else that would be a good person to write this book? And so she emailed me and she said, would you be interested? And I'm like, yes, of course. Because you just fast track things, right? When you work with a traditional publisher, you got to go out and get write a book proposal and go out and get an agent. And it's just a lot of stuff that you have to do. So I talked with the acquisitions editor, and probably, Sarah Catherine and I are similar in terms of, we both have a CFP. We both have a very practical approach to personal finance and things like that. And I immediately liked her, the acquisitions editor, and we talked a lot, about an hour that day. And she sent me this whole list of questions, which I now figured out that this is typically what a book proposal is, right? So I filled all of that out, and a lot of the stuff that I've done is around the FIRE, financial independence, retire early. So she says, I'll be back with you in about a week. I'll pitch it to my team. And when she did that, she got back with me and she said, oh, they really loved it. And she says, we see that you've done so much around FIRE. We'd like to call the book Fire for Dummies instead of Wealth Building for Dummies. A lot more exciting, a lot more, attractive to a lot of people. It catches a lot more eyes. So I'm like, that's great, because one, they made the connection that FIRE, a bunch of what FIRE is wealth building. And so I was glad that they made the connection. I said, sure, I'd be great with that. And so Fire for Dummies was born.
Oh my gosh. Well, I loved it. As soon as I saw Wiley, I was like, good for her, because,
Yeah.
and what was interesting is when you were talking about the process of, the acquisitions editor and working with a publishing house, the one thing I will say that they will give a writer is accountability. So
They sure will.
yeah. So
They sure will.
when you're working with a traditional publisher, it's a much different experience than doing self-publishing, because they're going to hold your feet to the fire. And I don't mean that as, as a
Right. They,
pun,
yeah,
but-
no pun intended.
right. No pun intended, but they will. They have
They
deadlines to
certainly
meet,
did.
and they have other editors that need to check the work. There's a huge
I
process.
had a technical editor. My technical editor was a friend of mine who was also a CFP, Cody Garrett. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Right.
And I definitely noticed that huge difference between, the self-published book that I wrote at my own pace. I even put it down for 6 months and didn't write anything. But Wiley is a business. They're not letting me sit around for years, to get this book written. So yes, but see, the timeline originally seemed very reasonable. I agreed to the timeline. Okay. It was no problem. I'm like, sure, I'll get that, because at that time I had technically retired from my corporate job. So I didn't have to worry about a day job like I did with the other book. And I'm like, sure, this is no problem. But then when it came down to the writing, oh my gosh, it was very different. I realized that I do enjoy writing, but I don't like writing on demand. I didn't like the deadlines, and I think psychologically it messed with me. I mean, I got it done, but there were moments where the ideas just weren't flowing, and plus, and I created it from scratch. Like, I had the For Dummies template, but I had to do the outline. I had to do all the flowing and all of that. And I had editors and everything, but they weren't the experts on this topic. My technical editor helped me, but he just edited the stuff that I had written. He gave me some really great valuable, feedback as we were working together. But yeah, that whole deadline thing and writing on demand, I know they have to do it because they're a business. I learned a lot about myself.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, that's which leads to my next question, because this is the part that I believe kind of gums up the works for many would-be authors. They have an idea, they're like, yeah, I want to get this done, and then they may even get to the point where they organize all their thoughts, develop an outline, develop, the chapter developments and all that of whatever the topic is, but actually sitting down to write. So your process for writing a book, can you share if you had a routine for writing content? Like, for instance, how did you make time to write the book? Did you do it in the morning, midday, evening? Like, what did it look like?
I tried so hard because this project came to me unexpectedly. I didn't put much thought into my writing process and my schedule and things like that. So I'm figuring it out as I'm going along, right? Like
Okay.
what times of day, when am I going to squeeze it in? So I didn't have like a regular schedule because I wasn't working and I didn't have to fit everything around that. So even if I um got a spurt of energy, I could start writing at midnight and continue writing until I just fell asleep at 4 a.m. So I got to do that. So it just varied. There was one moment where I did a big trip to Thailand, and my longest flight was like 14 hours. So I did some writing then. The things that I set up to help encourage my writing process, no matter where I was at and what I was doing, was really important. I had a template that was on the computer, but I mainly use a Google Doc because that was available on my computer, on my phone. And then I got to the point where I was using I would do transcripts from my voice, so that was helpful. I just had to immediately go back and see what it wrote that I said, because if I one day I went back 2 days later and I'm like, what did I try to say? Because that it doesn't always get it right. So I did, because and I love to walk and hike. So the voice process, doing the translation was helpful to me. And so, or doing the transcripts, that was helpful because I could have my phone with me and speak into my phone or my headphones and have it written down. When normally I would have to set aside time to be at my computer or on my phone. And so I did a lot of writing on my phone. It wasn't always on the computer. And there were just moments where it was flowing and I would spend hours. And there were some times where I just had a quick idea and I jotted it down, and that was 15 minutes. So I didn't have a real rigid process except those damn deadlines.
I love it. I love it. There, when you were talking about the different ways of actually like putting the words down, there's a device. I almost want to say it's called Just Right, but I don't know if that's correct. But it's like this electronic device that you can't get on the internet with it. So you can, it gives you like this tiny little
Oh.
screen, and it allows you to just focus specifically on writing.
Right,
So,
that's cool,
yeah.
and I was looking for all kinds of tricks. So I had people giving me all kinds of tips and tricks, and, the one I probably found most valuable is to be able to speak what I was thinking and have it written, for me, and then like I said, I needed to go back and check quickly to make sure that I wasn't, writing or it wasn't transcribing something crazy that it got the words wrong, or I don't even know what I wrote. I also try to use outlines. That was helpful to me a lot, like as I'm writing a chapter and I'm dividing up the sections, was helpful for me to go ahead and do that, and then I would fill it in. I even tried to see if Chat GPT was barely around, but I said, well, let me try it, and that really wasn't that helpful for me. I mean, every blue moon, if there was a certain topic where I just needed to get started with a bulleted list, maybe I would have that kind of started. But I always ended up just going back, just because the way that my mind works, it just wasn't that helpful to me. So that, some people recommended that as a shortcut and to help get me going on certain topics. And it just didn't, at the time, a lot of the stuff wasn't current, and I would have to go look it up anyway. So that wasn't tremendously helpful for me. And I just have a certain style, and I needed it to I like the seed to be planted in my brain. If it was like if it was just factual stuff, then maybe, but a lot of writing this book and any other book is your approach and kind of how your mind is designing how it is laid out, and not just regurgitated text or something that they've scraped from the internet.
Right, right. I have found mind maps. That's actually my
Oh, yeah.
preferred way of putting together ideas. Some people can sit down and write an outline the way we were taught in high school or grade school. And those kind of, I don't know why. And because I consider myself a linear thinker, but for whatever reason, that kind of an outline just wasn't doing it for me. But when I just put a circle, I just drew a circle in the middle of a page, wrote
Right.
down the main topic, and then I started doing the, like the spokes of a bicycle, coming out from it,
Right.
and then writing, yeah, okay, I would like to talk about this, and then this and this. And then all of a sudden some things started to fall in place, and things came forward in my mind that I wasn't considering before. So that is something, if you're listening and you would like to write a book, um, dear listener, try a mind map.
Yeah, I've heard of the mind map. I have a really good friend, Darren, that is the mind map king. And when he was telling me about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm a visual person. That might be helpful. But so and you mentioned the outline. So that was something else that again, I'm just starting this. I hadn't been thinking about it for months or years, right? I'm like, oh, what would the outline look like? And this is where my CFP training, definitely came in handy because I'm like, okay, how should I lay this out? And I'd always thought of, you know, I always try to boil things down in a very simplistic way. So, to me, I'm like, oh, I think the book could be, how I've always thought about wealth building, which is basically do more of these three things, do increase your income, increase your um savings, increase your investing, and then decrease these three things, decrease your taxes, your expenses, and let's see, what was the third thing? You decrease your taxes, your expenses, and your debt.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, that's the book. Well, it needed to be more than 6 chapters. So I'm processing it in my head and I'm thinking, okay, before you ever get to that, those are the mechanics. Those are the technical things. You gotta make sure that your mind is right. So I got to talk about mindset. Part of my training, before I even came a CFP, was a financial therapy program at Kansas State. So that was really helpful. And I've always felt very strongly about the mental and the psychological aspects of money. So I said, that's got to come first. And then I said, well, wait a minute, even before you dive into it, now you got your mindset. Now you really have to see where you're at. So I spent time on that. And then, of course, being a financial professional, I knew I had to put something in there about, working with financial professionals, because that comes up as a question all the time. And I knew that I was in a unique position to where I could really do a good job of explaining how this works because there's so much confusion both within the industry and for consumers. So I built that. I felt really good about the outline and how that was built. And then of course, providing resources for anyone that wanted more because as thick as that book is, I couldn't cover everything. And there were just so many people that I had learned from, primarily like in the FIRE community, that was putting out great content that were very engaging, and everyone responds to different people. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that the messenger matters. So if some of this stuff, if I didn't explain it good enough, or you feel like you just want more, here are some resources that can help you. And so towards the end, it was like, 10 big names in the FIRE community that you want to know. And so there's 10 there. And throughout the entire book, if I knew someone was doing an outstanding job at something, I would mention them. So I just always like to share the love like that, because if they're putting out great work, I'm more than happy to shout them out.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. I loved how also you were the part about reviewing or understanding what financial planners do, who they are, and how to approach them. That is like such an important part too, because it's something where I don't think a lot of people would necessarily say it, but inside they're like, well, I'm not quite sure what's expected of me, how do I, what kind of questions should I ask, all that. And it sounded
Right.
like that's something you covered.
Yeah, I absolutely did. I I started with, kind of the back to my CFP program is the history of financial planning. Financial planning was built on the back of investing. And a lot of people, talk about, the assets under management and things like that. I just wanted them to better understand why that is. And
Right.
then I talk about the different types of financial planners. And probably the biggest takeaway from that is to try to think about what you're actually looking for, because a financial advisor, anybody else, can't really help you if you don't know what you're looking for. If you specifically do not want someone to manage your investments, then you probably don't want to go and work with an AUM advisor, because that's what they do and that's how they charge. But
Right.
if you want help with investments, then that should be one of your questions. And another big thing that I talked about that I know I get a ton of questions about. I mean, it's out there on every social media platform. I have plenty of friends and plenty of people that will come to me now that they know I'm a CFP, is so many questions about understanding, how they're set up, what do they specialize in, what do they do? And I just say, transparency is a really big thing. So however they charge, that's just how they charge. But you should be able to go to their website, and if you have to click more than 3 times to figure out what they do and how they're compensated and all of that, and find what you're looking for, is this the transparency that's okay with you? I mean,
Right.
certainly you can go to their ADV. There's plenty of regulators and legal requirements, but for the average consumer, why are we not making it easy and clear how you do business?
Yeah.
So that was just one of the biggest things, is to know what you're looking for. These days in technology, every planner has a website that should be transparent enough for you to be able to answer the questions that you have. Is it a fiduciary? Are they a fiduciary? You shouldn't have to ask that on the day you're in their office. You should be
Right.
able to find that out from their website. Are they advice only? And I explained what advice only is, where they're just giving you advice. They don't want to manage your investment. That will be clearly on their website. Do they charge hourly or by subscription? That should clearly be on their website. And then even after the book is done, which I thought this was pretty cool, with Wiley, is that they have something called an e-cheat sheet, where I offer some additional resources. And one of them is explaining again these different types of planners, and there are links to some platforms where they have all of their planners have very transparent pricing, and transparent about what they do, what they specialize in, and their pricing model. So to get them going. So yeah, that's just always a question, because as much as I love personal finance, as much as we love personal finance and even investing and things like that, the average person probably doesn't. So they're not going to spend as much time digging and do as much research as I do. So let me save them a little time and give them sort of a little cheat sheet on how to find a professional if this personal finance stuff, or this, they want to work with a professional, because they don't, I pay someone to mow my lawn because I don't want to mow my lawn, but I want to know how much they charge. Do they do a great job? She happens to be woman owned, so I appreciated that. So yeah, I spent some time on that because I knew that I had a little more knowledge and understanding about how all of that worked. And the hope was that I brought more clarity than I did confusion. I think so, because I did have a lot of good feedback on that.
Yeah. And you were singing my song, by the way, when you're talking about the websites. And because
Wow.
I've written a lot of website copy, and one of the challenges to get through to a lot of business owners about websites is you want your website to, one website page should have one job. And you just know what that job is that you want that website page to do. And that's how you want to write copy for it. And you do want to be transparent, just like you're saying. And you don't want to have to make people guess. You don't want to have to
Right.
make your website visitor, hop around like several different pages to try to figure things out. You want to be clear and brief too,
Right.
regarding what it is you do, what you offer, and then to have that clear call to action. That's something that I have done with the books that I write, including calls to action. So when you write a book, for instance, it's a good idea to have a separate URL website. And in that call to action in the book, say, hey, if you'd like more, like some bonus materials, I have something special for you. Go to this website, and you have the link to your URL, and then you can download some extra information, and then you have that as an opt-in. So then it's a way to basically build your list, your email list, and to continue to nurture any leads you get. But that is what I call like the lead generation way of having a book, is you want to have that follow up. And it sounds like Wiley did that, which is great. I think I do. I have I'm looking at my bookshelf. I have a Wiley book. It's White Papers for Dummies. And
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, and they have a lot of great resources at the end of that book. So they took care of you. They got you set up, it sounds like.
Yeah, they had the template that was really helpful, because I didn't have to think too much about how to lay it out. I mean, sometimes it was a little annoying because I had to follow their, template. Other times I'm like, well, I have so many other things on my mind and so many other things to do as far as writing the book. It's kind of nice that they at least have the layout. And honestly, the For Dummies brand, I think it started in the 80s or something like that. I may get that wrong, but it's been around for many, many decades. So many people recognize, especially in academia, in the professional world, especially technology, recognize the For Dummies brand, the For Dummies name, and what they stand for. And so it was just great to be a part of that franchise that everyone, most people are familiar with.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I have one on photography too.
Oh, there you
So
go.
they have all sorts of good topics. So do you think there are too many financial planner or financial advisor authors? Like how would you encourage them to write a book?
Yeah, I definitely don't think we have enough for sure. Because if you think about what's out there, many of the financial planning topics, they're written by people that, aren't credentialed, that might not even be a financial planner. And we really can't complain too much about it because they have the ability to write a book too. So that's why I was happy and very proud to show that I'm a CFP professional. I know what I'm talking about. I've got the experience, I've got the knowledge, the training, and all of that. Passed that really hard exam, right?
Mhm.
So I could just bring in a unique voice and a lot more balance. But I feel like there's definitely not enough. And I was talking to a friend of mine that he's also CFP, but he is a financial planner. Was very interested in writing a book, and it was mainly for the purposes that you talk about. But he's an expert in certain things where he is the person that should be writing that book, even if it's just about the planner's process. Because I learned a long time ago that niche is better. So
Right.
I think some people are concerned that, yeah, I work only with let's say people that are engineers that are executive level engineers. And they think that's too, no, there's never, in my mind, it's never a niche too small,
Right.
because every, engineer that's an executive, that'll be the book they recommend. And it's written by a CFP. And these days, one good thing about technology is that most people understand or can easily look up, does this person know what they're talking about?
Right.
And with the CFP board and all their marketing with the, black and yellow logos for the CFP, most people know what that is and they put a lot of weight on that. So that even helps. But whatever your niche is, like my niche is fire. And some people, plenty of financial planners probably have never heard of FIRE. But Wiley, they're smart people. And there's a reason why they went with FIRE for Dummies versus Wealth Building for Dummies,
Right.
because it fits a niche that right now is very hot, no pun intended, very I don't want to call it trendy, because some people may see it as trendy, especially if they're just an outsider looking in, but it's just something that has attracted a lot of people. um the majority of Americans don't like their, not just America, all over the world, they don't like their job. They're literally Googling, how do I retire early? How do I leave my job early? What do you do if you're in a job that you hate? What if you want to follow your dreams and do what you really love, but how do you accumulate the money to be able to do that? So it's a very, very hot topic that so many people are talking about. It's been in all major media platforms, including like, ABC, CBS, Forbes, Rachel Ray. I mean, every platform you could think of, they've done a segment. CNBC is another one, done a segment on FIRE, financial independence, retire early, educating people on what that is. Is this for you? How do you go down that road? And it's just been a pretty big thing, and it happens to be my niche.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, going back to this niche idea is I know I worked with him, a financial advisor who works only with pilots. So he was an Air Force pilot, and he decided to use that experience in reaching other pilots,
Right,
commercial uh, airline pilots, and also I think FedEx pilots he works with. And so he calls himself the pilot's advisor. So, whatever it is that you have, as your background, you can a lot of times work that into a certain niche to reach out to a very specific audience. And really, and this is kind of like a marketing adage in a way, or a marketing principle, the more niche you can get, the better,
right,
because it allows you to really craft a marketing message that is just for that audience. Because when people realize that you're talking to them, like if I had a choice between, if I were a pilot and I had a choice between a financial advisor who worked with everyone versus one that worked with
right,
pilots, I would be attracted to the one that worked only with pilots, because I'd be, okay, this person knows my challenges a little bit more, or maybe something I'm coming up against within my, company policies or whatever, or retirement programs, so it's kind of cool, if you can find that kind of niche. There was another guy that I worked with. He worked with those who were Geico, not Gecko. Geico employees, and helped
yes,
Geico employees retire. So, there's just lots of different ways you could go with a
yeah.
niche, but it's important. Um, well, moving on, because I have a few more questions here. I want to try to get as many as I can in. Um, so how has these books that you've written, how has it affected your business? What have been the results?
Yeah, so going back to money letters, that definitely helped a lot. And basically what I was doing, I was still working my corporate job when I wrote money letters. And I started doing financial literacy workshops and financial education, and having a book. It's almost equivalent to a credential.
Oh,
When people can announce you as the author of, I noticed that they love that, and they so many people love the idea that I had written a book.
yeah.
And, it was a little surprising to me. Like I said, that wasn't my intention originally, but that certainly helped to get more, at the time, more speaking engagements, getting better known for being the person that can talk to kids about money. And that was a thing. Now, with the Fire book, again, it's another credential, really. So if anyone, and also I think it may help with getting media mentions and media coverage as well, because the book may be discovered before you're discovered. And if you there if and I've done a lot of media quotes, and been a part of different stories, whether it's about fire or even financial planning stuff, depending on what the topic is. Whatever my niche is, that's what they want. So I think it has helped, and really my business now. So I technically retired from corporate America, but my center point when I did that, my why was financial literacy and education. So like I said, I do one to many. So I'm working with companies, I'm working with government agencies, I'm working with organizations, communities, and things like that. So now they have, this book that I wrote that they love using as the impetus to, the talk. Well, gee, I want my employees to be able to, retire. Can you talk to them more about that? And I've had, organizations to reach out to me saying just that, and they'll reference the book.
Right.
So it definitely will grow, because I believe that a book, when you write a book, that is simply an extension of what you do and who you are. So now you've got another piece of social proof to show that you're an expert in this area. And trust me, by the time you're done with the book, you are an expert. Like with the fire stuff, I mean, I knew a lot. But in the process of writing the book, I had to make sure everything was accurate, was up to date. The things that just kind of rolled around in my head, I had to make sure those were correct. I had to make it make sense, and I had to make it flow, and I had to tackle all these questions that might come up. So, yeah, the book, I see it as an extension of who you are. So, of course, that's going to help you grow your business, grow your brand, because now you have another piece of social proof that says you are the expert, you know more about this than probably anyone else, and I got a book to prove it.
Right. I absolutely love that you brought up that term social proof, because that is something that, we work on a lot with digital marketing, for instance, is, trying to channel people toward the places that we have social proof. So it could be, your social media platform, it could be your
Right.
LinkedIn profile, it could be quotes, it could be testimonials, but you're always trying to prove to someone that, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. And as soon as you write a book, that is like one of the biggest
Right.
ways to prove your expertise. And people do treat you differently, which is it's kind of surprising to some authors, but also kind of cool, because they realize when you say, I'm the author of a book, suddenly people are like, what? An author?
Right.
Like they immediately their ears go up. And it's also a great way to get speaking engagements, because
Right.
most speaker bureaus or event planners and organizers, they're looking for authors,
Right.
because they know that if somebody has written a book, like you said, they're an expert, and they want experts to speak to that audience for that event. So
Yeah.
it's an all around great way to get your name out there to and there's a book, by the way, called The One Thing, and I'm not going to remember right away the author of the book, but it's called The One Thing. He had a real estate company, and they were trying to figure out how to be seen as like the leading authority in doing what they were doing, and trying to, increase business. And they came up with all sorts of ways, and all of a sudden they realized, okay, we're going to focus on this one thing, which was writing a book. And from writing that book, it was like a rocket launch. It
Yeah.
launched their firm into the stratosphere, and just became a really big deal, and brought in a whole bunch of business. But it was because they put themselves out there. And suddenly, when you have a book, you are seen as an expert. As soon as you hand somebody a physical book,
Yeah.
somebody realizes, okay, they wouldn't have spent all this time doing this and double check, because people kind of instinctively know that writing a book takes a lot of effort and a lot of double checking for stats and figures and percentages or whatever it is that you put in there. And they're like, okay, this person is somebody I can trust. So,
Mhm.
from doing sales, that trust, that's what is needed
Right.
to make that
Well,
transaction happen.
yeah, and books are more universal. Like if you think about social media, okay, you've got 20 different platforms. You know, you don't know where everyone lives or if they're even on social media.
Right.
So for me, when I'm learning something, a book is not always my first choice. But neither is a lot of the social media. But now that books come in every different format, you're going to get every kind of learner there is. So you're going to get the reader, you're going to get the people that are auditory, where they like to listen on audiobooks, and you're going to get someone that might want it digitally on ebooks. But not everyone is on social media. And even if they are, you don't know which platform. There's a ton of people that have exited X. That used to be the place to be. There's some people that the only thing they do is LinkedIn. Maybe that's the place. Or Facebook has been around for the longest. Maybe it primarily covers the demographic that you're trying to go after, but there's so many different places and you can't be everywhere at once. But the book is universal, and then you can place it on all these different platforms. And one thing I've worked on trying to do is taking pieces of the book and doing social media around it. Or if I'm on, someone's show or someone's podcast, they'll pick out a certain chapter or certain text section that they want me to elaborate on. So again, that just it becomes, a very big, important body of work that is an extension of who I am and what I do.
Right, right. I just went to a conference at the beginning of May on content marketing, and a book can be repurposed or reused or
Right.
reframed in so many ways for your content online. That's another way to use your book's content. So, not just putting it out there as a book, but you can take sections of it.
Right.
You could feature it as a blog post or feature it as a standalone article for another, place online. Now, I wanted because this kind of leads me to my next question because I was so impressed with all the media appearances that you have been able to get, and I wasn't sure if Wiley gave you a publicity agent or like
No.
because you've been on Rachel Ray, you've been on CNBC. I mean, it's like, so how did you get these media opportunities?
Okay, those are always the big important things. Well, first of all, most of that came before Fire for Dummies, before I
Oh, okay.
started working with Wiley. But they do not give you a publicity person. Like they might have someone creating social media, but it's really on you as the author, you know.
Got it.
So everyone should understand that. Even if you're with a traditional publisher, they've got hundreds, maybe thousands of books that they're putting out, and yours
Right,
is one of many. They're not gonna have the same passion and concentration on your book as you do.
right,
So a lot of the media, honestly, and this just really goes back to being the book being an extension of who you are. While you're doing, pulling out excerpts, putting them on social media, or you're just talking about this whole thing that you've written about in a book, people start to see, okay, this is what this person is. And honestly, most of those appearances I got because they simply saw the consistency and saw that I was, one of the experts in the thing that they're looking for. And in almost all cases, they came to me. They either DM'd me, they said, "Hey, we like the way you explain things, and we see that you wrote a book." Or, "Hey, we're doing a topic on like HSAs happen to be one of my topics, health savings accounts. We see that you do a lot around that. We're doing a segment that's about that." And some of these segments on some of the big shows, it might only be 2 minutes. It doesn't matter. You blow it up. So I've had LinkedIn happens to be a really good place. A lot of journalists live on LinkedIn, so they're on there, and that's kind of considered the professional website. So I have had many journalists to reach out to me on there, and it is important also to understand what's important to a journalist. Okay, timeliness, quick and conciseness. So if they reach out to me on Thursday at 2 o'clock, they're probably looking for a turnaround for Friday at noon. And I know we're all, working and doing our thing. So obviously you can't respond to all of them, but I don't get a ton of requests. But when I get the request, it's right on the money.
right.
It's an exact like bullseye for what I do. So I don't have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to respond. But they definitely like conciseness. They want you to follow directions. Okay, if they're asking you for a certain topic, don't say, "Well, I can't help you with this, but I can help you with that." No, no. And then another thing that I do that I think is really helpful is um the journalists that I have worked with, they're all my friends forever. I never talk to a journalist that's not my friend forever. And how am I a friend? I'm not just a friend because I'm trying to get something from them. That's a very selfish approach, and I don't have that approach. So but if they are looking for someone, let's say I see them making a post on LinkedIn or somewhere, and I know I have a network, someone like that is in my network, I will help them out, or I will share the post and I will help get them what they're looking for because inevitably there'll be something else that probably fits the bill for what I do. But boy, do they appreciate it. I just made their job 10 times. Like this was a recent example where there was a young lady, and I say young on purpose. She was in her late 20s or 30s. She wrote about retirement for one of the major publications. Okay. Well, she wrote about early retirement and traditional retirement. So she was looking for someone that was at traditional retirement age, and she was having a really tough time finding someone. Well, I know a lot of people that is in that age range that probably would be happy to talk to her. So I had like 2 or 3 people that I knew personally that I emailed and asked them if they were interested. I shared her post and I messaged her and said, and you know what? I didn't message her. I shared her post. I sent her a few people and I said, just be sure to mention that I sent you there so she knows the connection. She sent me a message and she says, "Oh my God, thank you so much for, resharing the post and sending me a few people." And one of the people that I sent her actually ended up being the center of that story. But again, I'm not benefiting directly, but I am indirectly because journalists have a job to do. And obviously, we want publicity. So if you
Right.
approach it in a win-win manner, then it just keeps going. Don't look at a journalist or quote as a transactional thing. You start to build that relationship and you start it by asking them, what else can I do to help? So if they're
Yes.
looking for somebody, help them out. And the other thing that I do, I started doing this like over the last year or two, but a lot of the articles, they may use a quote from you because, the Financial Planning Association, they have uh media requests where they have looks like a large process where they will have journalists that can reach out to them on a certain topic and then they send it out to CFPs or their members of the Financial Planning Association, and you can respond for anything that you can help them with. So it's this nice little exchange. And so a lot of times they're using you along with 10 other planners, and you may only have one quote in there. CFP Jackie Cummings Koski says you should do this. Okay, it'll get lost. Nobody's looking for my name in that big long article. So what I always do, I create a separate social media post. I highlight my quote, I give credit to the journalist, and I send a link to the article. And that goes so far. And it looks like I'm doing so much. Well, I mean, who knows how long I talked to her, but nobody's going to highlight my quote except me. But now once I share it, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, she was in CNBC, or she was in Forbes, or she was, whatever." So certain things that I do, I am the focal point and I'm the main story. Other things, I might just have one little obscure quote, but if it's a major publication, I definitely want to share it. And I may, with the post, I may add a little bit more that wasn't in the article, but
Right.
it just goes a really long way. But that's a good tip. And you could do obviously the same thing with your book. If someone reviewed the book that's of, importance or whatever, or if the book got featured somewhere, or if you did something with the book, that, like for instance, most of what I do with this book, I'm doing financial education sessions. So yeah, I'll have the book and people can clearly see that. I don't have to shove it down their throat. But I'm like, so and so, like I did something with Miller Coors because they're in Ohio, they're near Cincinnati, Ohio, and I did a session with the employees, and I just said, "Hey, Molson Coors does an amazing job in helping to educate their employees on their finances. What's your company doing? We talked about blah 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 today." So they get positive press. I get positive press. My book, so that's just an example too of the transparent world that we live in now, where you can share a lot that gives people a peek behind, what you're doing that they may not just see, if they brought the book by itself.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh my gosh, Jackie. Well, for anyone listening who wants to write a book, you just got a mini masterclass there on publicity. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it was what you were just saying, because I have a friend here in Columbus. She just released her book on PR. So she's a PR expert,
Um,
and she actually also said a few things that is similar to what you said, which is develop relationships with these journalists. They are looking for connections. They're looking to discover the people that could help them write an article, but it's not where you just try to pitch them and try to
Right.
push something once. And it also has to be timely. So I've written some press releases, and I always mention this to people who want to have a press release written. I said, you have to make it interesting. And if you can hook it, into a current news happening at the moment, like some kind of a hot topic that's going around, even better. But if you just,
Mm.
send out something that's kind of blasé, like, hey, we just opened up a new office,
Right,
it's
right.
like that doesn't really hit home for what a lot of journalists may need. But anyway, that was awesome what you just talked about. I love it, love it, love it. So I did want to ask, what surprised you the most about writing your book and publishing it and being recognized as an author? Like what happened that you weren't expecting to happen?
Well, when I was writing the book, I'm thinking about the For Dummies brand and that it wasn't unique enough to me. I was just writing, I was just chosen to be the writer for a particular topic. And I wasn't seeing myself as the unique individual that put out like a standalone book, if you will, that wasn't part of a franchise. So it was very interesting how once I started doing some publicity around it, and publicity to me is like, honestly, being on podcasts, podcast is my favorite way to learn. So I do know a lot of podcasters in the financial space. And many of them, as soon as I announced that the book was coming out, they said, "Oh, you want to come on the podcast?" So doing all of that made it more unique and personalized as me as the author, and it just brought it to life. So that was kind of surprising to me because I was feeling like I was just writing the guide, and sometimes, and I had someone to say, "Oh, I didn't even know the For Dummies were written by individual authors." And there's one about Social Security, For Dummies for Social Security. It is written by the people at AARP. So that almost takes away any kind of individual credence, right? It's the
Right.
organization. So for me to get individual credence, as the author of this book, even though it's a For Dummies book, that kind of surprised me because I wasn't expecting to get that. But it's amazing what a little bit of publicity and showing your face. Like I never post, like my face is not on the book. So I learned, you don't put your face on the book unless you're someone that everybody knows. So I didn't even do that on money letters. So every social media post, everything that I put out there, since my face is not on the book, my face is always with the book. And
Mhm.
I just try to come up with fun ways. It's like, gosh, the thing I stress the most is like have fun with it. Like you can enjoy the process. Even when I was preparing for the CFP exam, I hated so much that it was this tremendous amount of stress that people were under to pass the exam. I'm like, is there any way we can try to make this fun? And there are some ways, especially if you have kids, you can play games with them, but you can be learning at the same time. Um, so I just tried to make it fun. Like I decided to, and everybody knows what the normal cadence is for the book. You can find a checklist somewhere, do a box opening, share reviews or whatever. But one thing I started doing, and a lot of these things you only find out from trial and error. So
Right.
I started asking people can you get a picture of you looking like you're reading the book? Because I wanted it to be very diverse in terms of generations,
Right.
ages, ethnicities. I even had some people I said, just get creative. Some people that did it with their dog or their cat. And so now I put together these little montages of different people looking at the book. Some people will say, I'm on vacation, and the book will be in the foreground and they'll have a tropical island in the background. Someone did that for the skyline of Chicago. It could be a place marker, like here in Dayton, Ohio. I did one where the book was in the forefront and I had Skyline Chili in the background, Skyline Chili sign. And I did the same thing. My old employer, I did that for I went and I drove there. It wasn't that far. And the book is in the forefront and the employer's building is in the background. That tells a story and it just makes it fun. So I've been getting one person even, because you're thinking, oh, they got to have the printed book. Well, one person was, reading it on they were reading it on Kindle. and it was a beautiful picture of her face, and she's showing her Kindle. It was a lot of fun.
That's a great idea. When you can get your audience involved like that, it does make it fun and it does make an impression on people. You can, share that on social media, other people start seeing it and yeah. And
Oh,
I yeah.
well, and one other little thing, I'm sorry, I
That's
just saw
okay.
this sitting at my desk. So you were talking about doing things that are current, that matter. So uh earlier this year, a few months ago, I don't know if it's even been that long, but I'm originally from South Carolina, and my South Carolina Gamecocks, the women's basketball team, won the championship. It was huge. So I have a thing for $2 bills. You can tell by looking up there. That's a 30 uncut sheet of 32 $2 bills. So I did this with $2 bills. That is it's in a clear sleeve. You
Oh,
got the South
wow.
Carolina Gamecocks basketball. And you know what this is now? It's a bookmark.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
And then of course we're from Ohio, so this is
That's
one with
right.
Ohio State.
So
Yeah,
you have
so now I've been giving away these for a very long time, and now they're bookmarks.
Oh my
So
gosh, that is awesome. That is another great marketing little ploy or marketing
yeah.
yeah,
And
idea. I
everyone
love it.
has these great ideas. Once they start and you kind of coach them with that. Like as you're talking to them and stuff,
Right.
you can help sort of jiggle out some of these great ideas because we all have them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They're in
Absolutely.
there.
And I love the bookmarks because I'm such a bookworm. I found out there was an Instagram video I saw, it cracked me up. The woman described herself as a book dragon. And the
Oh.
reason dragon, because dragons usually hoard gold, but she's like, what she hoards is books. So
Okay,
and
okay.
I'm definitely a book hoarder, I think, when it comes to that. But so I'm always having, and I like physical books. I do have a Kindle and I do like my Kindle, but there's just something I like about holding a book. And of course, all those books need bookmarks. So, so it's a
Yeah,
great idea to do the
yeah,
bookmark.
there's so many cute things. I mean, even if you're doing it digital, like I would not have thought of this myself, but the girl that had the Kindle and she showed her face and I guess the Kindle took up more of it, but you can sort of see her face. So that was really cool. And then I did a post where now the big thing is the not audiograms, but where you have like the transcript of what someone's saying in the big letters or whatever. I hope I'm calling it the right thing. But I did something like that with I gotta say it quietly, with Alexa.
Okay.
So since it was on, if you've got something on audiobook, or even if it's a podcast or whatever, um I would have a picture of my Alexa and I would say, Alexa, read Fire for Dummies. And then she would come back and
Oh,
say, okay, reading Fire for Dummies, chapter 1, section 1. And then you would have the captions. You would have the captions to come up in bold letters, but it's kind of cool. So you have like maybe an image of the book, you'd have the Alexa, and then you would have the captions saying, doing it, just encouraging people to say, hey, it's on audiobook.
that's right. And by the way, that is the way many people that I follow when they're always talking about books and reading books, it's audiobooks they're listening
Right.
to. So, I mean, I'm a big podcast listener myself, but if people have an Audible account, that's usually how they're just ripping through a lot of these books.
Right. Well, and another tip is that I happen to have the paid Spotify. I got a deal with like Hulu and Spotify together. And Spotify just started with having audiobooks. I just noticed it. So they've
Oh,
got it. And then not to mention uh you've got the library apps for books. Gosh, there's like two main ones where you can get it through your library where you're actually listening to audiobooks.
right. Did I for us, Columbus Metropolitan Library, it's I think it's just called digital downloads, but
Okay.
you go to that, it's a separate web page and you can check out either the digital version of the book or an audio version of the book.
Yeah.
So it's really, yeah, that's
Those
really great. Well, oh
Well, and
my
that could be the library thing could be another, good option, doing things at the library because people that read books hang out at libraries. And
That's
it
right.
could be a way where you can, I know people love to do the dinners and all of that, but I think people are hip to that, that, they want to get your business. But, what about doing some pure education? Like, we have so much knowledge
Yes.
and so much experience that we can share with other people for free, but it gets us out in the community, and you never know what connections that might build. Because honestly, every speaking engagements I've done, whether it's free or paid, I'm always getting more than just what I get paid for doing the event.
Right.
Through a connection, or someone says, "Oh, I saw you that you spoke at this place, and you had this book," or "I'm going to get your book." So it could just sort of spread out that way, just being present in the community, or present in your professional network as well, or if you're adjacent to some other group in the community where you support them anyway. Why not
Right.
support them with books, or do some kind of talk or whatever, and don't expect anything in return. You will get that, again, building the relationship versus doing a transactional type thing.
Right. As a matter of fact, you named a huge way that I was able to get my services out when I was a dating coach for single women over 40.
Oh,
So I got married later in life, and I wanted to help more women basically find someone to love, and if they wanted to get married, great, or if they just wanted a companion. And I contacted my area libraries and I gave a presentation for free. And I sent out press releases to our local papers and the weekly papers and everything. And I had women coming to this. And from that, there was one day that the assistant producer for our local Fox News affiliate showed
oh,
up. And I had no idea who she was. She comes up to me afterward and she's like, "Hey, would you like to be on one of our early morning shows doing a little segment about dating for older women?" I'm like, of course. But
how
that,
cool.
yeah, but that's how those sort of things, like you said, that's how it happens. It's by you putting yourself out there, and you have put yourself out there. You have taken risks. And I love it. I cannot tell you how much I love it, because writing a book is, yes, a big risk. And you have to get over your, what I call the mind trash, of doubting yourself, wondering if, you're a poser or a pretender, and do I really know, enough to write a book and all that. You got to kind of get through that mindset and all of that resistance that I often refer to from Stephen, oh my goodness. Oh, his last name now is escaping me. But he wrote a book called The War of Art, and then also Do the Work. So I'll put that in the show notes. But at any rate, he capitalizes resistance when he talks about it. It's something all creative people, whenever you're trying to create something, you're going to come up against. There's always going to be some resistance. And it's just a matter of just saying, you know what? I feel you. I know you're here. I'm going to do it anyway, you know?
Right,
And so
right.
you just have to push through. But anyway, I wanted to come here toward the end, because I could talk to you forever. You are just you're a treasure trove of
Oh, so
so much.
are
Oh,
you.
well, thank you. But just, I have so enjoyed this interview. Where can people find your book? Where's the best place that they can go?
Yeah, the best place to go is where everyone knows, that is Amazon. And it is all over the world. I just did a global um, event where there was people from all these different countries, because they were asking where to get the book, and I said, well, in the US you can get it on Amazon US. Well, there's an Amazon Canada, there's an Amazon UK, and someone even told me, oh, I just saw it in my library in New Zealand. I'm like,
Ah, I
so
love
these
it.
can, yeah, these can get all over the place. So it is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever books are sold. If you prefer to purchase from a an independent bookseller, all of them should have it, or you can order it. And they're even available through your library. If they don't have it, you can request it. I want to get this in the hands of as many people as possible. And even if they can't afford the book, they can at least try to make it to the library. So that's where you can find the book, and it's in all formats. The audio version is the last to come out, and that should be out actually in a couple of weeks at the end of June.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, if somebody would like to maybe have you as a speaker, where would they go to contact you for any
Yeah, they can.
speaking engagements?
Yeah, yeah, they can. I'm a corporate girl, so I'm always on LinkedIn. I seem to make a lot of connections there. I get the least trash there. But my website is JackieCummingskoski.com. But one other project that I'm pretty proud of is I co-host a podcast called Catching Up to FI. FI is financial independence. And we have some amazing guests. Many of them are experts in the financial planning space. Many of them are CFP professionals, but we also have late starter stories where we talk to individuals that will take us through their journey. And I myself was a late starter, so that's why it's kind of close to my heart. But I co-host that with an emergency room physician named Bill Yon. And I always say, when he's not saving lives at the hospital, he's podcasting with me. So this particular podcast grew so fast. It's gotten so huge, and obviously it filled a niche. So that website is catching up to fi.com, and you can contact me there as well, especially if you want to focus on that particular area. And thanks to a little encouragement from you, I do some speaking around getting media and press coverage and things like that, really through my experience. I didn't go through the formal training or anything, but I've done some things that have been proved to be, pretty effective. And I've had other people that kind of followed that, and it worked out great for them. So yeah, I'd be happy to connect. I do enjoy the financial planning community. There's a lot of great people out there. I feel like there's a lot of change going on, so much needed change. And I went down the path of, becoming a financial planner and getting my CFP because I wanted to be a part of that change.
Oh, well, you're certainly doing a great job, I can tell, and
Thank
reaching a lot
you.
of people. And it's my hope that this reaches even more people to introduce them to you. So I want to thank you very much, Jackie, for your time, for sharing everything that you shared. And more information will be added to this is going to go on the YouTube channel and also my own podcast. But we will make sure that all that information to contact you. Check out your website and a link to where to buy your book or where to find it, that'll be included. So thank you
Yeah,
very
thank you
much.
so
And
much. This was amazing. Thanks for having me.
thank you.